Have you ever noticed how some people seem to age gracefully, while others just fade into the background? It's not about luck or genetics. It's about the little things they do, or don't do, every single day. Here's the truth. After 60, the way you carry yourself, the words you choose, even the way you move through the world, they all send a message. And whether you realize it or not, people are noticing. They might not say anything, but they're watching. In this video, we're going to talk about the habits that quietly push people away as we get older, the ones no one dares to mention to your face. These aren't just pet peeves. They're the subtle behaviors that chip away at your dignity, your connections, and the respect you've earned over a lifetime. The good news, every single one of them is fixable. And by the end of this, you'll know exactly how to shift these habits so you can move through your golden years with confidence, grace, and the kind of presence that makes people lean in, not back away. Let's start with the first habit, one that's so easy to miss, but impossible to ignore once you see it. Neglecting the little things. You know what's fascinating? The difference between looking well-kept and letting yourself go isn't some grand gesture. It's in the details. A shirt that's been worn one too many days, hair that hasn't seen a brush in a while, fingernails with just a little too much grit under them. Now, you might think, who cares? I'm comfortable, and that's fair. But here's what no one tells you. When you stop tending to those small things, people don't just see laziness. They see something deeper, like you've stopped caring about how you present yourself to the world. And here's the kicker. They won't call you out on it. Your kids won't say, "Dad, you smell like old newspapers." Your grandkids won't tell you your collar's stained. Instead, they'll just stand a little farther away. Cut visits short. Stop reaching for hugs. It's not vanity to want to look put together. It's respect for yourself and the people around you. You don't need designer clothes or fancy cologne. Just a clean sweater, freshly washed hair, shoes that aren't falling apart. These tiny choices whisper, "I'm still here. I still matter." And when that's the message you send, people respond differently. They treat you with more warmth, more patience, more reverence. Because dignity isn't about age, it's about energy, and nothing kills energy faster than the silent message that you've given up. Now let's talk about something even more uncomfortable. The filter that disappears. There's a strange thing that happens as we get older. That little voice in your head that used to say, "Maybe don't say that out loud." It gets quieter, and sometimes it vanishes altogether. You start thinking, "I've lived long enough. I can say what I want." And sure, that's true. But here's what they don't tell you. Just because you can say something doesn't mean you should. Ever catch yourself making a joke about someone's weight, or their divorce, or how they're raising their kids? Maybe you brush it off with, "Oh, I'm just being honest." But here's the thing. Honesty without kindness isn't wisdom. It's just pain, dressed up as truth. And people? They won't argue with you. They'll just disappear. Phone calls get shorter. Invitations dry up. Because here's the hard truth. No one wants to spend time with someone who makes them feel small. Now, this isn't about being fake. It's about asking yourself one question before you speak. Is this helpful or just hurtful? You've got a lifetime of stories, lessons, and hard-earned wisdom. Wrap them in kindness, and people will lean in to listen. Deliver them with a sneer, they'll just walk away. And speaking of walking away, let's talk about the next habit, one that's hiding in plain sight. Living in a time capsule. Clothes from the 90s, a haircut that hasn't changed since Reagan was president, shoes that look like they've been through a war. Now, there's nothing wrong with comfort. But when your entire look screams, I stopped paying attention in 1995. People notice. And it's not about fashion. It's about presence. When you wear clothes that fit, not just physically, but energetically, you tell the world you're still engaged with life, that you still see yourself. Think about it. Would you show up to a job interview in the same suit you wore 30 years ago? Of course not, because you know first impressions matter. Well, guess what? They still matter at 60, 70, 80. This isn't about chasing trends. It's about showing up as the best version of yourself today, not the ghost of who you were decades ago. A well-fitting pair of pants, a shirt that actually buttons without straining, shoes that aren't held together with duct tape. These aren't just clothes. They're little flags that say, I'm still in the game. You know that moment when you're telling a story and suddenly realize you've been talking for 10 minutes without taking a breath? We've all been there. But here's the thing. When that becomes your normal, people start dreading conversations with you. Let's talk about the fourth habit that pushes people away. The conversation. See, there's a special kind of loneliness that comes when every chat feels like a lecture. Maybe you don't even realize you're doing it. Someone mentions a problem, and before they finish, you're jumping in with advice. A grandkid shares their dreams, and you're already telling them why they're wrong. Here's what no one tells you. When you dominate every conversation, you're not just sharing wisdom, you're stealing space. Space where someone else could have felt heard, where a connection could have grown. And people, they won't say, Grandma, you're monologuing again. They'll just stop sharing. Stop calling as much. Keep things surface level. Because here's the painful truth. Nobody wants to be an audience to someone else's one-man show. Now, this isn't about talking less. It's about listening more. Try this. Next conversation, count to 3 after someone stops speaking. Ask one follow-up question before offering advice. You'll be shocked how people open up when they feel you're actually listening, not just waiting for your turn to speak. Because here's the magic part. The less you try to control conversations, the more people actually seek your input. When your words feel like gifts instead of lectures, that's when you become someone people want to talk to, not someone they tolerate. Now, let's tackle something even more divisive. The kids these days trap. Back in my day, we had real problems. Your generation is so soft. Nobody wants to work anymore. Sound familiar? Here's the uncomfortable truth. Every older generation has complained about the younger ones. But when that becomes your default setting, you don't sound wise. You sound bitter. And young people? They hear it. They just stop talking to you about anything that matters. Because why would they open up to someone who's already decided their entire generation is hopeless? Try this instead. Next time you're tempted to trash kids these days, ask a question instead. What's that app you're using? How's the job hunt going? Tell me about your friends. You don't have to understand everything about their world. Just show you care about it. Because here's the beautiful part. When you stop comparing generations and start connecting with people, something magical happens. They start asking for your advice. Not because you forced it on them, but because you earned their trust. Now let's talk about something we all do, without realizing how it affects others. Space invaders. Ever been stuck behind someone at the grocery store who's parked their cart sideways in the aisle? Or had someone stop dead in their tracks in front of you on the sidewalk? Here's the thing. When you're the one doing it, you don't even notice. But everyone around you, they're silently screaming. As we age, we often lose awareness of how we move through space. Maybe you walk slower now. Totally fine. Maybe you need to pause more often. Understandable. But when you stop paying attention to the flow around you, blocking doorways, drifting across sidewalks, holding up lines. People don't see someone with wisdom. They see an obstacle. The fix. Simple. Glance behind you before stopping. Pull your cart to the side if you're checking your list. It's not about speed. It's about awareness. When you move through the world with that basic courtesy, people don't just tolerate you. They respect you. Because here's what they never say out loud. The older adults who get treated with the most kindness in public aren't necessarily the most spry. They're the most considerate. A little spatial awareness goes further than you'd think. Now, let's talk about something even more personal. The TMI trap. My arthritis is acting up again. Let me tell you about my latest doctor's visit, in detail. You think that's bad? Wait till you hear about my colonoscopy. Here's the hard truth. Constantly talking about your ailments doesn't make people care more. It makes them tune out. They don't know how to respond to yet another medical update, so they just change the subject. Or worse, avoid you altogether. This isn't about suffering in silence. It's about balance. Before sharing health details, ask yourself, is this a conversation or just a monologue about my pain? Your life is so much more than your medical chart. Let people see that part too. Because here's what they won't tell you. The seniors people love being around aren't the ones who never mention struggles. They're the ones who talk about their grandkids' soccer games, the novel they're reading, the crazy bird that keeps visiting their feeder, and only then mention, "Oh, my knee's been bothering me." But enough about that. People will surprise you with how much they step up when you're not constantly asking them to. There's a moment that comes with age, a quiet crossroads where you have to decide. Will you become the kind of elder people seek out for wisdom, or the kind they make excuses to avoid? The difference isn't in your years, it's in your habits. Let's talk about the last few behaviors that might be pushing people away without you realizing it. The helpless act. Can you program my phone for me? I just don't understand these newfangled things. You do it. I'll just mess it up. Here's the uncomfortable truth. There's a big difference between needing help and using help as a crutch. When you play helpless over things you're capable of learning, it doesn't make people feel needed. It makes them feel used. Your grandkids notice when you ask them to text for you, while scrolling Facebook perfectly fine on your own. Your neighbors see when you pretend not to understand the thermostat, right after bragging about your smart TV setup. Try this instead. The next time you're tempted to play helpless, ask yourself, could I figure this out if I tried? People admire effort more than perfection. That shaky first text you send yourself? More impressive than the 100 your daughter sent for you. Because here's what they'll never tell you. The seniors who get the most help are the ones who only ask when they genuinely need it. When your requests feel like choices rather than habits, people jump to assist because they know you value their time. Now, let's tackle the hardest habit of all. The always right syndrome. That's not how it happened. Trust me, I know better. In my day, we did it this way. Here's the painful reality. Insisting you're right doesn't make people respect your wisdom. It makes them resent your arrogance. They won't argue with you. They'll just stop sharing anything important. There's a reason your grandson hesitates before telling you about his art degree. There's a reason your neighbor changes the subject when politics come up. It's not that they don't value experience. It's that they're tired of being lectured. The fix? Practice saying these magical words. I never thought of it that way. You don't have to agree. Just show you're willing to consider. That tiny opening is all it takes to transform you from stubborn old coot to wise elder worth listening to. Because here's the beautiful paradox. The less you insist on being right, the more people actually seek your perspective. When your words become rare gems instead of constant noise, That's when real influence begins. The final habit, and most dangerous. There's one last behavior that pushes people away faster than anything else, and you'll recognize it immediately in others, but maybe not yourself. It's the eye roll when someone mentions yoga, the snort when a grandkid talks about their mental health day, the way you say, "Back in my day, we didn't have anxiety, we had work." This isn't just about being old-fashioned. It's about sending a clear message. Your reality isn't valid because it's different than mine. And that message? It's a relationship killer. Young people today face challenges you never did, just like you faced challenges your parents couldn't fathom. When you dismiss those struggles, you're not proving your toughness. You're proving you'd rather judge than understand. Try this tonight. Ask a younger person, what's something about your world that's harder than people realize? Then just listen. No corrections, no back in my day. Just quiet respect. That single conversation could rebuild bridges you didn't even know were burning. The beautiful truth. Here's what I want you to remember. Getting older isn't about clinging to the past. It's about bringing your wisdom into the present. Every habit we've talked about today, they're not life sentences. They're choices, and choices can be changed, not overnight, not all at once, but one small shift at a time. Letting someone finish their story before jumping in. Choosing a fresh shirt over the stained one that's still fine. Asking about a grandkid's video game instead of mocking it. These tiny changes send ripples through every relationship in your life. Suddenly, you're not just old. You're valued, not just tolerated, but treasured. So here's my challenge for you. Pick one habit from this video, just one, and work on it this week. Notice how people respond differently. See if conversations feel lighter, visits last longer, hugs come easier. Because the secret no one tells you about aging. The people who age with grace aren't the ones who never make mistakes. They're the ones who never stop growing. Remember, getting older is inevitable. Growing bitter, that's optional. Here's to choosing differently, starting today.